Hello, and welcome to Lights Camera Community Action, a podcast brought to you by the New York State Community Action Association, or NYSCA for short. My name is Heidi Barcombe, Program and Communications Director for NYSCA. NYSCA is the State Association for New York's Community Action Agencies, commonly known as CAAs. NYSCA's mission is to strengthen the capacity of the Community Action Network to address the causes and conditions of poverty. NYSCA was created in 1987 to provide CAAs in New York with professional development opportunities, training, and technical assistance. NYSCA is the hub that brings together community action agencies in New York to network, share successes and challenges, and strategize to meet the needs of vulnerable New Yorkers. A community action agency, or CAA, is a local organization with the mission of reducing poverty through locally designed and delivered programs and services targeted to the specific needs of their community. The 47 CAAs in New York form a statewide service delivery system that connects individuals and families to the services they need to achieve economic status. When it comes to moving folks from poverty to self-sufficiency, community action agencies know what works. The most recent U.S. Census Bureau information indicates that 1 in 4 children in America live in a home without a father or a father figure. A 2019 study by the National Fatherhood Initiative found that children who have involved parents have a lower risk of infant mortality, obesity, poor school performance, incarceration as teens, and suicide. This same study showed that children without involved dads are 4 times more likely to experience poverty than children with father figures in their lives. The community action agencies in New York State have a long history of supporting fathers and building a strong foundation with their children. Today, we're talking with 3 people who are actively involved in their fatherhood programs. Let's meet our panelists.
Hi, my name is Jacki Evans. I work for Peace Incorporated for the Head Start and Early Head Start program, and I have been in this agency it'll be 22 years on September 10th this year. I've been in my current position for just a little over like a year and a half. I was a site supervisor for a very long time, so I worked directly with families on the site level. And now I'm the parent engagement and male involvement coordinator for Head Start and Early Head Start.
Welcome, Jacki.
Next, my name is Scott Leach. I'm the Director of Fatherhood and Father Initiative and Community Engagement here in New York City, of all the 5 boroughs, of the greatest 5 boroughs of New York. And we do a great deal of opportunities and activities for our fathers here. I've had about 25 years of working experience in fatherhood. Work for the Department of Youth and Community Development. You can see right here, DYCD, as we're known. And I'll turn it over to Al.
Hello, everyone. My name is Al Meyers. I'm serving down in the Cattaraugus County area, down in the southern tier. And I actually started with Fatherhood Connection about 15 years ago, being trained by Reggie Cox from the Rochester area. And so I've been working with social services for the last 15 years and with our Connecting Communities and Action Agency in Cattaraugus probably for the last 5 or 6 years. And so I'm glad to be here, and let's roll. We're going to have a great time together.
Jacki, Scott, and Al, thank you so much for giving us your time today and being willing to come and talk with us about the Fatherhood Initiative. I guess I want to start with defining the need for fatherhood program in your community. What does that look like, and how did your community action agency get involved?
Sure, I'll jump right in. We actually had a new executive director not long ago, Carolyn, who is a rock star. And she had been hearing from the NYSCA community that this funding was coming through. And she really felt like Peace Incorporated needed to be at the table. And so our agency put together a team of people prior to me taking this position who got trained in Reggie Cox curriculum for the fatherhood meetings. And then I came on board as the Head Start piece. And so we've been working together, and basically the need came from many things in our community. The amount of violence that is happening here is pretty high in our neighborhoods in Syracuse, because we serve Onondaga County, but also the city of Syracuse. And in our Head Start program, we have many single parent families. We have many families experiencing domestic violence. We have a lot of community violence here. So with all of those things in mind, and the fact that the men don't really have a space where they can be safe and vulnerable and connect with other men and role models in the community to support them in their needs, we felt like this was a really good opportunity for our community.
Thanks. And Scott, I know that DYCD has been running this program for quite a while. Can you talk to us about what it looks like there?
Yeah, DYCD has been running fatherhood for well over 20 some odd years now, and we've had different iterations of fatherhood. Before I came on to DYCD, when I was actually working for a CBO of DYCD, we had a lot of our fatherhood programs. We had at different levels. We had older fatherhood, we have younger fatherhood, we had fathers under the age of 18, which was very unique and something that, once again, we need to explore a little bit more about coming up as we move forward. And once again, we serve fathers who are incarcerated. So if you know about the 5 boroughs in New York, each one of our boroughs is a little unique and really different. And serving fathers in that particular community has to be adapted to that community, particularly what happens in Queens does not happen in the Bronx, and what happens in the Bronx doesn't happen in Staten Island. What happens in Staten Island does not happen in Brooklyn. So it's all different. So we have a different kind of ways that we have to do our fatherhood programs. Even though we're using 24/7 Dad as our base curriculum, we kind of alter it somewhat, once again, to make it match our community.
Al, can you talk to us a little bit about CCA's program?
Yeah, certainly. Well, again, it started with our social services department really kind of launching the addressing the fatherless America. We live more in a rural and suburban area. We have the city of Olean and the city of Jamestown kind of fairly close together, and recognizing that there was this kind of wave of latchkey kids that are now growing up and their fathers, and they really don't have the tools or resources necessary to kind of like know what they're doing, and they're gutting it out, doing the best that they can. But most programs 15, 20 years ago were geared more towards the moms. And while the dads want to be involved, they just didn't know how to go about it. So we started 15 years ago simply asking the question, where is dad in the picture? And that led to this partnership with our community action agency, where we are now running and have been consistently for the last probably 6 or 7 years, both the 24/7 Dads curriculum and the Fatherhood Connection curriculum. And I like to differentiate between those two, whereas 24/7 Dads, again, a 12-week program, it tends to be evidence-based, and it's a nationally recognized curriculum. And I like to think of it as more of like a classroom, and it's good because it helps you to think your way into a new way of behaving. Fatherhood Connection is more of a support, inviting guys into a movement, and much more of like, you got to trust in changing up the ways that you do things. So it's behaving your way into a new way of thinking. And so I like both kind of angles that address the fatherhood initiative in Cat County. But really, it's trying to give dads their equal rights. We recognize that by when dads are lacking in the picture, the crime rate, teen pregnancy, drugs in our area. We have the Salamanca Reservation. And so there's just a lot of depression, economic depression, as well as emotional and spiritual depression in our areas. And so we're trying to address that portion of fatherless America.
So, Scott, I want to go back to, you had mentioned a program for fathers under 18 specifically. Can you talk with us about that? That sounds pretty innovative.
So our fatherhood program with our fathers under 18 was we were using 24/7 Dad as our curriculum that we were using. But connecting with fathers under the age of 18 were very, very difficult. They have a lot of things that they need and a lot of services. And once again, this is a very difficult population to hone in on because of what they don't have, or they do have. A lot of times they may have some support groups so that things don't really seem as realistic to them. Whereas at the same time, you have some guys who have little or nothing. They have no housing, they have no job, they have no education, and they're really struggling trying to even take care of themselves, and even understanding about their role in playing a father at 18 is very, very young to them and very, very new to them. So working with our younger father population was very, very difficult. We found a struggle with it, and once again, we changed it model, and we just integrated the young father program into our older fatherhood program. And once again, doing that was very helpful also, because then a lot of the older fathers actually did some nurturing for the younger fathers that were in the program, which made it a really good connection, where that some of the guys didn't have a father figure in their life, but when they came to program, they would actually unite with older men who kind of help teach them and talk to them, and maybe give them some tips about, here's some things I did wrong, and here's some things I messed up at, and here's a younger guy, you have opportunity not to go down that same road I did. So we integrated the both programs together as we changed from year to year, and as we moved up, and as we're learning more and more about the field of fatherhood, we're actually even integrating many new aspects in the work and understanding of fatherhood into the current work we're doing now.
You each mentioned the 24/7 Dads curriculum. Can you share with us a little bit about the key components and the principles that are involved in that curriculum?
Well, the 24/7 Dad is one of the nationally known curriculum. Actually, it's probably the top. It rates out higher than almost any other curriculum that's out there, even though there are other curriculums that are out there. And once again, 24/7 Dad is really trying to get the father to unite back with the family, understand some roles that he plays within the family dynamic. And also, even there's a great section they have about ages and stages of child development, which I really love. Once again, for fathers or men who don't get opportunity to understand that, because once again, as men growing up, we don't usually have the opportunity to nurture children or nurture anybody early in life, because we're socialized so differently. So that once again, for a man to be able to understand why a kid asks a question 20,000 times, and understanding in 24/7 to teach you that the child is learning, the child's a sponge, the child is trying to get information from the world so that they understand where they need to go. So those type of things in 24/7 Dad, once again, communication skills of how you communicate with mom, walk a mile in her shoes, how did she see things. Those are really great skill sets that 24/7 Dad has. That's a great guideline of discussion topics that go into their curriculum.
Thanks for explaining that. I'm pretty new to the Fatherhood Initiative, so it's helpful for me to understand that.
I'd like to
Jacki,
jump in.
yeah, please.
So the characteristics that they talk about in that particular curriculum, I think are also consistent with some of the things that Reggie's curriculum covers. So we also use both curriculums. We have two separate groups, and one of them is using Reggie's curriculum, and the other group we just moved into the 24/7 Dads. So we just finished our first set with 24/7 Dads. The majority of the fathers in that group were my Head Start fathers. So, and they do range in ages. So either curriculum really hits both age groups, like the younger and the older, very well. The 24/7 Dads is, I agree with you, Al, it's very much more structured in terms of, they lay out all the lessons for you. The dads actually get a cute little handbook that they get to take home with them. And some of them are like, can I leave that with you so that it's here when I come back? They're able to sort of set goals and then follow up on some of the things that they're working toward. So that curriculum is just very, very structured. This past session, we actually were able to, we're able to sort of braid funding, I guess I would call it, a little bit between Head Start and Peace Incorporated funds. So two of our Head Start dads were able to get trained to become facilitators in that. So we allowed them to sort of practice facilitating the last group, and they used this, which I think was really helpful because it's already worked out for them. So they just have to kind of read through the curriculum ahead of time, be prepared to present that, and it really creates some great conversation.
Yeah, I'd like to add one piece that are a strength in both of the curriculums. If the facilitator implements them correctly, we have the statement in our in our county that I keep telling people, it's only, I mean, if it's good information, that's great, but it's information plus application, which will actually yield transformation. And so one of the pieces, if done right, at the very end, they leave about 15, 20 minutes to go around the circle. And there's you fill in, what's your big takeaway from today's lesson or session, et cetera. And, what are you going to do differently when you go home and interact with your kids, or discuss or talk with your co-parent, your spouse, your significant other, et cetera. And then they, kind of write those things down. So now they're accountable to some sort of change or action item. And then when they come back the next week, everybody checks in with each other, does the introductions. It's always a level playing field if someone comes in. And so I think it's that small little accountability piece that really engages the hearts of the men. And again, another mantra or cliche, if you will, in our area is I like for us to think steps and help men to think steps, not programs, even though we are program driven. When you start to incorporate steps into guys' minds, they realize that they begin to shift without realizing it into a growth mindset rather than a victim mindset. And by taking those steps and realizing that if so my daughter likes hugs, but I'm not a huggy person, I'm going to change that up. And because she needs hugs, I'm going to make sure that I give her a hug once a day for the next week. And so when the guy comes back and shares in group, all of a sudden the guys are affirming him. He's doing something right. And he's like, wow, this stuff really works, and that's the catalyst for transformation. So I think that accountability piece at the end of every lesson in 24/7 Dads, as well as every session in Fatherhood Connection, makes the most significant impact for change, internal change for the guys.
And Heidi, I just wanted to add one last thing. Once again, 24/7 data is usually used because most fundings require that you use an evidence-based curriculum. If you didn't have to specifically use an evidence-based curriculum, there's a wide range of other fatherhood curriculum that's really, really good, but it's not evidence-based yet. And once again, to get evidence-based, we have to find research dollars so that father organizations can actually make their curriculums evidence-based.
I'm thinking about, or I'm curious about, the structure of an actual session. So can you walk me through, the guys come in the room, what does it look like? Is there an outline? Is there a structure, or is it very loose flowing?
I would say, at least in our programs, each one, and like I said, because of the diversity here in New York City, it's a little bit differently. Some are very structured, that the guys are coming in, everybody does a welcome, everybody does a check-in, or they check in from the last session, like Al was saying, affirming what happened from the last session. Some groups we have, everybody comes in and they're breaking bread, they're having a meal, and everybody's talking over a sandwich or something to eat as they're discussing different topics. I don't know if there's really one right way to start a session. Most facilitators are really good. They get the feel of their clients in front of them and they make things work that way. But then there is a pattern of going through and making sure what is delivered during the session. And once again, maybe how to close out the session so that you don't leave people hanging too much, but some way that they're wrapping things up at the end and be able to deliver a content and be able to give homework assignments and things of that nature out. But I don't know. I'd like to hear from the others to say if they have a real structured way, or they run it similar to what we do.
So we have the two separate groups right now, and both groups are following a different curriculum, but we do have a structure planned out for every week. So we actually, as a team of facilitators, we meet once a week and talk about what the plan is for the week, and we go in with a structure. However, there are times where we get to the meeting and someone's in crisis, or some things have happened in the community. For example, we have a meeting tonight, and I heard this morning that 2 kids might have been shot in one of our neighborhoods. So that could potentially be the topic of our meeting tonight, although that's not the plan. Because just depending on what's happening in the community and in people's lives, we do shift a little bit. We also provide meals when we can, and childcare. So in the evening session, we do meals, and we have Head Start staff that come and support us and do childcare for us, which has been a tremendous help. So that is part of the structure that we've built in, along with referral systems. So when other things come up, that we know that we can refer people to services.
And I'll just quickly echo about the same thing. We have, so I always think as an umbrella called the Fatherhood Initiative. And then underneath that umbrella, we have 24/7 Dads and we have Fatherhood Connection. And again, the distinction between the structures, it's very much more like a classroom setting in the 24/7 Dads. They generally will do pizza and wings that runs 2 hours on a Tuesday, 2 hours on a Thursday, and they complete the 12-week sessions in 6 weeks. So it's pretty intense, like an intensive. And they kind of start out with introduction, then jump right into the meat of the curriculum itself with limited discussion held until the end. And then they have to also, according to our contract with Chautauqua Opportunities, they have to include Money Smart, which is another curriculum. So it's very much curriculum driven. So it is like sometimes drinking from a fire hose, and it just feels like a lot of stuff for the guys. But it's also like a good shot in the arm to kind of get them thinking about different topics such as emotional intelligence and how do I handle my anger, not just manage it, but how do I eradicate it and bring it down so I'm not always seething with this anxiety, stuff like that. The Fatherhood Connection, which is what I run every Thursday night, I connect with churches and agencies to provide a home cooked meal each evening. We run ours for 2 hours, but we also offer the Zoom option because my co-facilitator, who was a client several years ago and then went through the training and stuff, is now my co-facilitator. He works in IT, so he's got all the fancy gadgets and gets us. So any guy that can't make it because of childcare or sickness, they always have the Zoom option where they can join us, which has really broken down some barriers. But we always start with eating, usually right away around 6 or 6:05. And then while we're eating, we do introductions. And I always like to start that structure with a 10 or 15 minutes of introduction, giving us your name, the number of kids that you have, if you want to tell us, if they're boys or girls or their ages, and then what was one significant event that happened throughout the week. And that always kind of, gives us a platform for whatever topic we're going to discuss. And we have kind of a formula of workshops that we do with them, but where the Fatherhood Connection, we may have childhood development planned. But because a couple of the guys are struggling with parenting, we may do our parenting strategies and trying to understand the parenting funnel and the difference between childishness and foolishness, and just a lot of different thoughts that way. Because when we figure out what the need is and we address the topic to meet the need, it tends to stick a lot more. So again, those are our two different structures of each group, and we try to overlap because the 24/7 Dads meets during the day and Fatherhood Connection meets during the evening. So we try to cross-refer as much as possible. Again, inviting men into a movement, not just a classroom.
I like that, into a movement, not just a classroom. I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Also, Heidi, that a lot of our instructors have been very good with finding videos to use as tools during the class structure. Once again, those visual items make it very, very helpful for fathers to understand, since we know that men are very visual creatures. When they can see that and they can hear those things, that helps add to the curriculum. So even though the curriculum is very structured, once again, finding those other tidbits to add into the structure goes a long way.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you can talk to me about some of the challenges that you face along the way, either in getting dad into the program or getting them to complete the program. Talk to me about some of the challenges and some of the ways that you've addressed those challenges.
I'll jump in here on the first. One of the challenges is men typically don't trust. And when you get a bunch of red tape and filling out this form and filling out that form. And it really is what feels like debilitating to a lot of guys. So we work really hard at trying to remove some of those barriers, whether it be transportation. I try to help other guys pick up other guys to join. The other, again, when we start to help guys think steps and not programs, sometimes talking to a guy, if you think of it in stages of conversation. So like my first initial conversation is just to say, hey, I got your number. I got you referred to, I'm wondering if we can come alongside you and partner with you to help you, with learning a little bit better how to make a better connection with your child or those children in the sphere of your influence. Is there any way that, and usually if you can get them to start talking about their story, if I can just get them to talk about their story in that 10, 15-minute phone call, then at the end of the phone call, I usually say, hey, I just want you to know there's a group of us that meet together and we encourage one another because, again, everywhere we go, we're told of how we get it wrong. But I want you to know this group is about affirmation, approval, and celebration. And we really want to help you know when you get it right so that what gets rewarded gets repeated and you can do that more often and become better at life and become better in your relationships and with your kids. And so I want to invite you into this movement and we meet such and such a time, et cetera. And if you just want to jump on Zoom and check it out, like you're kicking the tires, like you're buying a car and just check it out. And then I'll call you within a week or two and get your debrief. And because we always trying to get better too. And so you invite guys into with their opinions and their thoughts. And it may take 3 or 4 conversations. And so I always keep them on this kind of rotating list. And it might not be this session that they come to, but then I'll give them a call, for a ramp up in the next session and say, hey, I'm not sure, where you are, but just wanted to reconnect with you, see how things are going. And, let you know that we're going to start another 12-week journey. And I'd love to have you join us if you're able to. Any ways that, I could help you get there. What do you need? And oftentimes, sometimes it takes a whole year of contact before the guy plugs in because he's got to build the relationship and build the trust first. So that's one of the challenges we see and how I've tried to overcome that at least.
So engagement and trust. Jacki and Scott, are you seeing similar things or other challenges?
Sure. I cheat a little bit because I use this thing that I call positive trickery. And the people that I've worked with said it absolutely works and now they're doing it. It's basically, it is building the relationship. And I am forthcoming in terms of saying this is considered a parenting class. You do get a certificate at the end of this, which stands up in court if you have to go to court for custody, or if you have like CPS is called and you have to prove that you're taking a parenting class to them to show that you're working on your parenting. It stands up for that too. So that is a selling point. But really it's about the relationship. And I just often will say to people, come and have dinner with me tonight. Me and a group of guys. I'm the only female in the room typically. And I'm willing to step out if I need to. But come and have dinner with us. Check it out. See what you think. You don't have to commit. So I think having that just like open feel really works well. And also having the participants, they help us recruit as well. We table at any possible event we can get to. I love to talk. So I'm out here talking about the program all the time, or the movement, shall I say. But really talking about how passionate we are about the work that we're doing, and having the participants help us recruit new people is also beneficial because they can share their real life experience about why they keep coming back. Because we do have a lot of people who have actually been through about 7 cohorts with us now. They just will not leave. So now they're facilitators.
No, I concur to what both of them say. Relationship is the key factor. If you don't build that relationship with these gentlemen, you're not going to get them. The other thing that we have to always consider, it makes it a little bit difficult, is their schedule. And sometimes our clients are over-programmed because, when they get there, the courts or whoever is sitting there says, well, you have to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, you have to go to this drug treatment program, you have to go to this parenting program, and then they expect you to have a job and pay child support at the same time. So once again, helping them to understand and balance their life goes a long way also. And I think that struggles sometimes because at the end of the day, I know I have to eat, so I have to keep my job. And a lot of times the fathers we work with under this contract, they're below the poverty line anyway. So they may not have a regular 9 to 5 job. They're getting hours when they can get them. So if a shift comes up and they have to make a decision, do I go to class or do I take this shift? They're going to choose the shift, like anybody else would normally do, because they need to be able to survive. And we have to take that into consideration also as we're working our schedule and trying to make plans available and make easy access to the guys to doing this. During the pandemic, the guys loved it because we could easily jump on a Zoom, or we do classes while they were on their break at work or something like that, or when they're traveling. If you know about New York, you have to commute everywhere. So in between, during your commute, you can still be in somewhat of a class to get services and understanding, or be in that club, as we kind of say, that movement that the guys want to be. And a lot of times guys really appreciate having some space that they can call their own, where they can feel safe. They can have the confidence that whatever happens in this class stays in class, and that I have a brotherhood or a sisterhood too that's supportive of me.
Yeah, I'd like to add to the barriers, because you mentioned the scheduling. That is a huge barrier, especially because, particularly in our agency, all of the co-facilitators have full-time jobs that aren't fatherhood. So the fatherhood piece is an add-on. It happens to be our passion, so we make it work. But there's not funding in terms of, I know some programs have been fortunate enough to be funded so that they have dedicated facilitators, and that's what their whole job is. Unfortunately, not every program has that ability. So that is definitely a challenge that we'd like to overcome in the future.
And Jacki, you mentioned that dads hear about you through tabling events and through word of mouth. How else are referrals made, and how else do dads hear about this program?
So we're in our community building relationships with other community organizations who are working with families, social services, the school districts, any other agencies that we can get our hands on to share this information. We're hanging up flyers in barbershops and corner stores. But I will say the flyers don't do us justice. People really don't give the flyer much notice unless one of us is there talking about it. So generally it's boots on the ground work. That's how we're getting people to the table. So one of our facilitators is a reentry person. So when he's meeting with families about reentry, he is also pushing the fatherhood piece. So a lot of our clients are sort of shared. So we've got Head Start dads, we've got reentry dads. And so we just communicate that way. And I'm in the sites at Head Start. Anytime we have an event for Head Start, I ask the other co-facilitators to come and table with me and kind of talk a little bit more about the program, because that face-to-face connection is huge.
I guess I want to jump a little bit to ask you if you can each talk to me about something innovative that you are doing in your community. And Scott, do you want to start?
Well, I guess one of the innovative things we're doing, we're actually restarting back and relaunching our citywide fatherhood roundtable discussions, where that we're getting different leaders from different organizations, different city partners to come back together to understand and focus on somewhat fatherhood. At one time here in New York, we had a position which was the fatherhood czar, which was a guy named Alan Farrell, and he was kind of in charge from the mayor's office, which made it really, really exciting that when someone from the mayor's office said, hey, listen, can you send me a representative from your organization or from your city agency to talk about fatherhood? It made a big deal. Then that position went away, but we're looking at restarting that or relaunching that again. And once again, asking different city agencies to send a fatherhood representative to us. And once again, it goes back to what Reggie was doing with the Father Connection. And once again, giving us a reason to come together and have discussions and topics, talk about fatherhood. But once again, having the resources and the funding to be able to make it worthwhile, someone putting it into their work schedule, that makes a big difference. But here in New York City, we've been doing fatherhood for a while, so a lot of the city organizations know the work that DY Fatherhood providers have been doing. Once again, we're not a provider directly. We oversee funding that goes out to other CBOs that does the work. We oversee what they're doing. But once again, sitting here at the city gives opportunity to be able to call together city leaders and actually even national leaders together to be able to talk and to be able to say, come talk with us a little bit more.
For us, I'm not sure I would consider it like, groundbreaking, innovative, but we do try to, like, once a quarter, summertime, fall, springtime, roughly 3 to 4 times a year, creating events where fathers can bring their sons or their daughters to an event. So, like, we have Allegheny State Park. We did it was July 6th, but it was a cookout and playground, and we provided meats and hots and hams, and everybody brought a dish to pass. But the dads would bring their kids or their families and create some interaction, and the kids would play together or they swam. And then we had some kind of intentional, like, training moments of how do you handle this situation or that situation. And so it was really good kind of block building. I think we had maybe 15 families that showed up to it. So it was quite nicely done. A couple of our schools we've partnered with to do daddy-daughter dances, which I think has been pretty cool. Again, there's kind of the pre-coaching part of it and then the debriefing afterwards, and just recognizing that it's okay to like take your daughter on a date and show them what it means to be chivalrous and kind and compassionate, and the motto of not just protecting your child, but nurturing and protecting. And so those are two. We haven't really discovered one for the springtime. I know we've done some sporting events going to St. Bonaventure, but again, the whole idea is just to create connection within dads. And when you see a dad getting it right, don't hesitate to go, "Hey, I see you. You're doing a great job as a dad." Give them a thumbs up and then walk away. You don't have to do anything else. But the more you see dads spending time with their kids, it's amazing when you walk over to them in a restaurant and say, "It's really cool to see you out with your kids. I just off observation, I think you're being a great dad. Good job," and walk away. Because again, the more you can kind of trickle that into the movement, dads begin to realize that it's a healthy and great thing to be involved in your children's lives, whether they be your stepchildren or your neighbor's kids. It doesn't matter. Whoever the children are in the sphere of your influence, impact them and influence them to the best of your ability.
Jacki, I know that you mentioned that you have childcare at your program, and I think that's pretty innovative. Are there other innovative or creative programs that you've created, or do you want to talk more about that?
Sure, we've done a couple of things. Some other community agencies have offered like training opportunities, and we took our entire group over to one of those one night, like a leadership opportunity. So I thought that was really interesting, and I'd like to continue to do that. The participants really had a lot of positive feedback about that. The one thing that I'm very excited about is something I've been working on since I took this position. It's finally happening. On Million Fathers March, Fathers Bring Your Children to School Day on the 15th, I am doing for Head Start dads. I have 100 slots reserved. We serve about 1,000 kids in our program, but I was able to reserve 100 slots over at the Collegian Inn Hotel, and I have lunch for fathers. I'm doing a Head Start orientation for dads and male caregivers only. Typically about 80% of the parents who register and do orientation with their child is usually mom. So I'm doing a special one for dads. I have community agencies coming to table, specifically geared toward fathers' needs, including, of course, our Fatherhood with Peace team is going to be there to talk about getting engaged with our group. And Reggie Cox is coming to speak. So I'm very excited. This is my first one. Hopefully it's going to be an annual event, but that's happening next Friday. So
that's excellent. And you mentioned Dads Take Your Child to School Day.
Mhm.
And I know that that's coming up. Can you fill us in on that a little bit?
Sure. So this year, the theme is fathers engaging in education, which fits perfectly with what we're planning to do and what I do for a living. So we will talk a little bit about how critical brain development is at this young of an age, and how, I think presence is so important. We talk about that a lot with parents, that being present with your child and really engaging with your child doesn't just mean being in their space. And so I think the theme this year when it came out was just perfect for Head Start. Scott, I know you probably could share a little bit more about the history of this day.
So there's really actually two campaigns that run simultaneously. So the first campaign that actually started is, to correctly you're saying, the Million Father March. That came out through the Black Star Project that was out in Chicago about 22 years ago. But the term that most people gather around is called Dad Take Your Child to School Day, which came out of the Million Man March. And that actually started the term Dad Take Your Child to School here in New York State. Some of the guys from Ultra Da and some from OCFS, they happened to be at a conference. And they heard about the Million Man March, the Million Father March to school, and they loved the idea. But when they came back to New York State and they tried to implement it, no one wanted to do a Million Father nothing. So that was just that at that time. And actually, I know Kenny Braswell is down in Atlanta area, and he actually keeps the Million Father March conversation going, keeping it going on the 15th. But most schools celebrated on the third Thursday of September, which is September 21st this year, which is called Dad Take Your Child to School. And actually, it's funny because Kenny was one of the 4 founders of the name Dad Take Your Child to School Day. It was Kenny Braswell, Will Henry, and Rodney Pride, and I can't think of the 4th guy, but they actually were at a lunch counter and they were discussing this topic, and they would say, hey, how can we get people to buy into it? And then they came up with the term and the name Dad Take Your Child to School Day. And then Dad Take Your Child to School Day is in its 17th year of doing that, kicking off once again here in New York City. We're kicking off on the 21st of September, and we're going to be using one of our local NYCHR houses as a launch site, and we're going to be walking children to school and having a celebration, and we're going to have some parades and some noise. We have the police department involved. We're going to be bringing in our street teams in, once again, talk about safe passage to school. And once again, these are a lot of our different organizations that are helping, supporting, and once again, telling dads and showing men in the community to be present in your community. So on September 21st here in New York City, we're launching across the 5 boroughs of New York City, but we're really launching and pushing out that we want men to be involved in their community and in their children's education. So once again, so there's actually 2 platforms. The 15th, yes, it's the Million Father March, which Kenny Braswell does part around the country. And then also the national campaign is called Dad Take Your Child to School Day. We love both of them. We support both of them. We also want to remind everybody that this is not always just about dads. So if there's moms involved, we want moms to come out and march also with us. We love the parents, and we love father and father figures to come out, because sometimes we have pastors, ministers, we have many different people who the children look as father figures in their lives, and we want them all to come out to support those children's education.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. I want to jump back to the Fatherhood Initiative for a second, and I want to ask you, as we're getting ready to wrap up, what more is needed?
Go ahead, Scott.
No.
One of the things that I noticed probably about, I don't know if it was 6 or 7 years ago, the National Fatherhood Initiative, NFI, which is again a national movement, they were doing commercials, like a 30-second commercial here and there with celebrities who were engaging with their kids, and it was just a take time to be a dad moment. And I found a resurgence of dads who wanted to engage in that after they've seen, like, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, dancing with his daughter, or I don't know, there was a series of them that came out. And so sometimes we use those as videos in our curriculum as well. But, one thing that's needed is kind of that just national acknowledgement, once again, of the whole fatherhood initiative, and that some counties now are doing a great job of connecting with dads. So on a meta narrative level, it'd be nice to see a larger scale, more billboards, et cetera, where there's kind of a culture that's created around fatherhood.
Jacki, what do you see in your community that is needed more?
I think our agency has a lot of passion. I've met a lot of people through our backbone meetings who have a lot of passion. I think it is funding so that we can build a bigger network of people that have the same passion that we have. Realistically, it's finding the money to do more work.
And Scott, what do you think your dads are needing more of?
Well, once again, our dads need a lot of stuff, but I said in the fatherhood movement, I want to push that, say that I think we need to have some type of main hub that really focuses for fatherhood for the state. Like out in Ohio, they have their own they have the Fatherhood Coalition. They have actually a executive director of fatherhood for the state of Ohio. A lot of the states have those positions in place where there's someone on the state level that's really focusing on what's happening throughout their state on fatherhood. That goes a long way. Once again, sometimes funding comes through those offices out to the CBOs, to community organizations in their area. But once again, it's a voice on a much higher level to remind people that fathers need to be services, or fathers matter in the work that we're doing now. And also, sometimes just having that right voice at the right level goes a long way. And right now, in most states and most parts of the country, there is no father voice at that high level.
And what do you think, or what have you seen the impact has been on dads and children based on this program?
I would tell you the impact is tremendous. To see what fathers can do and how simple things, and I think the research in NFI has always shown it, simple things about fathers just being present. And I would say, let me correct that, dads being present, because we distinguish between a dad and a father. And when we say any male can be a father, can be a father because they're just genealogy, they can do that. But every father can't be a dad. And a dad means a person who's present. And what we use the term of dad is a term of endearment, which a child bestows upon a male who's present in their life. They don't, you very rarely see kids say, "Hey, that's my dad," or they just call him daddy. They hear sometimes negatively, you say, "Well, yeah, that's my father." But they don't call the man who's present in life, they call him daddy. That's my dad, Or sometimes children will ask men, "Can I call you daddy?" They don't ask them, say, "Can I call you father?" Ask, "Can I call you daddy?" So that's a big impact.
That's a great distinction between father and daddy.
We've gotten a lot of feedback about not only the impact on our participants' families and children, but just, their own self-awareness, their self-worth, the way they communicate with people in general. So they're communicating better with their families, but they're also communicating better at work. So they're more successful there. The skills that they're strengthening in our sessions, they're able to share that with other people in the community. And then therefore, that sort of spreads to other people. So it's very positive, infectious growth in our community. Although it's small and it's only a few people at a time, it is growing, and it is affecting our entire community.
Yeah, I would kind of echo that. As feels like more like a grassroots movement type of thing. So a couple things that we're seeing, at least reporting from the outside in types of things, is dads are engaging more with a child's medical doctors, dentists, things like that, as well as the education portion where dads are interested in the child's education. So teachers are reporting dads are showing up more for open house and for counseling or parent-teacher conferences and things like that, as well as the just the fact that more dads, regardless of some of their circumstances, are catching up in arrears and paying child support because they're learning it's really is about the child and not necessarily to pay back the person that causes me a bunch of ick, sort of thing. So again, those are outside measurements, and there's nothing that's like, oh my goodness, look at the breakout, kind of thing. But very much like Jacki was talking about, they're just small incremental changes that I think are more significant. And again, one of the things is in our engagement, to be careful not to acquiesce to the short-term fix, but keep going for the long-term gain. And I think by inviting men into a movement, we're seeing the same things. Like the guys may be strongly encouraged to attend this particular 12-week journey, but then they come back again, and they usually will bring another guy with them, and they'll stick around for sometimes 2, 3. I've got two guys that have been doing it for 7 years, and they don't want to stop because the stages of development from their kids being young to now teenagers, they need more support and more help. And so again, that camaraderie and brotherhood that's developed for encouragement is, I think, really filling a need for men's hearts in that.
I'd like to also add one of the things that we're seeing here, which feels very successful to me in my community, is that people are connecting with people that don't look like them or sound like them or have the same background as them. And they're coming together in a way that they respect one another, and they're learning from each other's cultures and able to put new practices in place based on what they're learning from other people. And I think that's been really one of the things I think I didn't expect to see happening, but it's blossoming naturally.
I think that the successes and the impact that you have mentioned, the connection with schools and healthcare and improvement and increase in paying child support and connecting with community members that you might not otherwise connect with, those are all really big impact on the community. Although individually they might not seem large, I think collectively they're big. And those fatherhood initiative impact is powerful. And the work that the community action agencies are doing within the fatherhood initiative is probably invaluable in your communities. Does anybody have a success story that you want to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, Heidi, I wanted to add one more that I'm working with a group up in Westchester, which is doing a really, really exciting program up there. It's called Father United, and what they're doing is taking retired fathers and retired men and bringing them back to schools and stuff to help their kids in their education and getting them back into. So a lot of guys are getting almost a second chance to be a great dad. They may not have done it because of the careers that they had, because a lot of these guys are doctors, businessmen who are really high powered, but they're coming back and they're doing like a dual generational event where dads are connecting back, or granddads are connecting back to students who may not have father figures in their lives. So that's really exciting, and I really love that program that's happening.
That sounds like a great program.
I'll start off with our success story, and one of the other pieces I just want to make sure that we do mention, as we down in Uncat County, we're part of a trauma-informed coalition, and so probably for the last 4 years, I took a training to do neuroscience, which is neurobiology, epigenetics, fancy word for intergenerational trauma transmission kind of stuff, ACEs and resilience. And so I've been able to incorporate that into our men's groups. You'd be surprised of how many men have undergone trauma and they don't talk about it and they don't go to a counselor or a therapist. So to weave that thread has been incredible transition and transformation for the guys. So that's my success story setup. A guy came to us. He was a veteran, 31 years old, struggled with PTSD. Him and his girlfriend split up. He's got a 4-year-old son, and he's been with us now for 2 years. And very, very distracted. Suffered from anxiety and PTSD disorder, and just a bunch of stuff. And the guys just kind of really came around him, a lot of times feeling lonely. We'd stay, a couple of us would stay in connection with him throughout the week, see how he was doing. So he started out with 2 hours of visitation. He came to that cookout during the summer where he has upped his ability to communicate with his ex-girlfriend, and they have healthy communication. He's now on unsupervised visits. He was able to get his license, and he's completed 2.5 months of barber training school, and has about another 2 months to continue. But he goes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then comes to group on Thursday, reports to us how things are going, and we encourage him. And it looks like he's going to get his barber license. I invited him over to my house and had him do 5 hours. He was there for 3.5 hours of giving 5 of my kids haircuts. And so again, just building that relationship and affirming the steps of progress that he's making. And it really is. It's such a joy to see that kind of transformation take place. And it really does something for your heart and your passion. It's like, keep it going, kind of stuff. So sorry to get emotional, but that's the way we do things.
I love it, Al. Thank you. Scott, I want to ask you about the New York City Affirming Fatherhood convening. Can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, so here in New York City, we were blessed with funding from this organization and others to be able to have a fatherhood conference here in the 5 boroughs of New York City. This year, we actually did it. This is the second year, and this year we did it virtually and we did it in person. So we're looking to grow that once again. Having a place where New York City and New York State, hopefully, fatherhood specialists can come down and convene and share and talk about it. So we're looking at doing it once again this year coming up in 2024. We're looking for some locations right now, and hopefully that you all will come on down and be part of our next Affirming Fatherhood conference.
Do you have a tentative date for that yet?
No, you got to find the location before you can get a solid date.
Yeah.
But we are looking for one now.
Okay, well, please keep us posted, because that's something that I think a lot of people would be very interested in participating in. Mm-hmm. With that, I'm going to get ready to wrap up. I want to thank you, Jacki, Al, and Scott, for your time today, for talking with us and sharing your information and your knowledge about the Fatherhood Initiative programs. We really appreciate that. So thanks so much, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Chris is joining us today from Connecting Communities in Action, and Chris has been an active participant in CCA's Fatherhood Initiative. Hi, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us and for giving us your time. I'm wondering if you can share with me a little bit about your story related to the Fatherhood Initiative.
Sure. So I came into Fatherhood Connection about 2.5 years ago, under the recommendation through Al Meyers, who is our local proctor. I have 3 children, 2 of which are currently teenagers with disabilities. I had become friends with Al, and he, brought me to this group because he knew that I was really struggling with some of the behaviors of my children, and I really felt like there was absolutely just there was no care or support for that. So coming through this course really showed that, I'm not alone in this situation, and I'm not the only dad that struggled through, court custody issues and family relationships. So it's definitely made some tremendous changes in my life being a part of this group.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you learned from the group and how it has impacted your relationship with your kids?
So a big part of it is, I would say it's anger management, but not really. It's not taking responsibility for my children's emotions, which means even though they may be upset or sad, I I can be there with them, but I need to be able to support them with that. Before I came to the group, I used to get very offended when my kids wouldn't listen to me or they were, crying or whiny or whatever, and I took it really personally. Through this course, I've really learned how to step back myself, not become emotionally involved in their struggle, but also be a support to them, which has really strengthened the connection between me and my children, because they know that I'm there for them and I'm not going to get agitated with their issues.
I'm guessing that over the years, couple of years, you've made some pretty good connections with some of the other dads. Can you tell me about, is that supportive and what that support looks like?
Absolutely. With the nature of this particular course, there are definitely guys that come and go. Some complete the course, don't, and some don't. But the few that have definitely stuck around and completed the course, I've made several really deep friendships. Also, if I go into a moment of struggle, I can reach out to them and be like, "Hey, my kid broke a window and I am over the moon about it. Can you help me off the ledge so I don't destroy that relationship with my children and so I can build a relationship, but also, be a parent in that moment." And I'll tell you, one of the biggest challenges I have is I have to be able to flip from teenage father to toddler father in an instant. One moment I may be handling a 16-year-old who's mouthing off and, being a grouchy teenager, to a toddler that's asking why 1,000 times, and then back to the teenager. And I have to be able to do that while, keeping my stance. And this course has definitely been able to help me with that, because that's definitely something I struggle with, especially in the beginning.
Those are some big age differences. That's a challenge to parent a toddler and a teenager at the same time. I was exactly there with you, Chris. I had a 16-year-old and a 3-year-old at one point. So I understand completely. Chris, I know that you have teenagers. Can you tell me, what do you think they would say about your parenting compared before to after going through the Fatherhood Initiative?
Before the course, I parented out of anger and frustration, and now I parent with purpose. And my boys would definitely tell you that I am much more patient and understanding, but also still firm with them.
That's quite a testament coming from 16-year-olds, right? Teenagers aren't always understanding of that. So
Absolutely.
That's a pretty big testament. And I'm wondering if you can tell me, there are dads who might be thinking about this, who might be hesitant to join a group. What would you say to any dad who is considering joining the Fatherhood Initiative?
Stop thinking and just do it. This this group is incredible because whether you're the best parent and you've had everybody telling you, "I can't believe you're such a great dad," or if you have people in your life telling you that you're not a great role model for your kids, this support group is really phenomenal at covering the whole spectrum of fatherhood. And there's no judgment. It's a tight group. We make good connections. I mean, there's food involved, so that's always a plus. And it's discussion based, so it's not like the stereotypical, being taught at you. It's being supported with you, and that is, I would say, where the incredible change happens is when, a new dad comes in and goes, I'm here just because the court orders me. But after that 12th class or whatever, he says, you know what, I'm going to keep coming back. That's when you see the huge difference, because that support is just so much more than just a class book textwork.
That's really good information to share and good advice. Thank you so much. Chris, I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing your experiences with us. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.